Welcome to Comprehensive Scorecard Application. The objective for this lesson is to apply the key Comprehensive Scorecard concepts to your particular organization. Specifically, you will identify the key performance measures in each of the 7 Comprehensive Scorecard areas and identify and diagram the relationships between the performance measures. Then you'll evaluate the current measures using the selection criteria and process. And finally, you'll evaluate the current measurement data available in levels, trends, and comparisons. We start with the comprehensive scorecard framework and identifying the metrics. So we cover these one at a time, starting with 1 through 7, and identify what examples for each one and how to identify it. So when you're filling out your worksheet, begin with the customer measures. Identify the customer and market measures, both perception measures and behavior measures, and if you have them, the outcome and result measures for the customer. These might be the surveys that you conduct, first-time sales, repeat and referral sales, that sort of thing. Then, working backwards, identify the product measures that predict the customer measures. In other words, if you do these well, will the customer come back more, buy more, bring their friends with them? So what are these are product offering type measures, maybe the menu, the quality, the timeliness, and can include the customer service side of things as well, and any customer experience metrics that you have. Then identify the operations measures that will predict those product and service measures. What are the in-process and intermediate product and service measures that you want to measure in order to, if you do those well and manage those, that'll result in better products and services, which will result in better customer perceptions and sales. So these are the in-process type measurements and could include things like timeliness and quality along the way. And then the last measurement in the value creation system are the supplier metrics that when your suppliers do these really well, will enhance your production processes and measures and your product and service measures and eventually your customer measures. So these are supplier quality, timeliness, things like that. Once you've got the value creation systems measures down, then move to the workforce and identify the workforce measures that predict the operations, product, and customer measures, the metrics that would influence them. If you do them really well for the workforce, it'll improve the value creation processes. So these are things like employee engagement, maybe measured by a survey, number of qualified employees versus the requirements from a capability and capacity perspective. And could include employee satisfaction surveys and metrics of behavior like the percent of turnover. Once you've finished with the workforce scorecard, move to the knowledge and information scorecard. And this scorecard really affects the rest of the system. And in this one, you're going to identify the knowledge management and information system measures that when you do these really well, they predict internal customer satisfaction with the systems. So these things might include things like the percent of IT system uptime, the user friendliness score for the systems, and from a content perspective, maybe the number of best practices and lessons learned in your knowledge database. Once you've completed the enabler systems measures, move to the guidance system measures, both leadership and governance. We'll begin with leadership and identify the leadership, financial, strategy, development, and strategy deployment metrics. These could include things like operating and capital expenses, the amount of cash on hand and flows, gross sales and revenues sometimes are measured here as part of a net income or market share, and any metrics that are tied to the strategy, accomplishing the strategy, and or the projects that for deploying the strategy, such as the cost, quality, schedule metrics that you measure for major initiatives. Then identify the measures for the governance scorecard, which include things like natural environment, the energy sources, usage and waste, and social responsibility measures. Metrics here could include things like recycling and revenue, greenhouse gas emissions, and maybe audit findings and ethics violations. Once you've got this, to create your own, you're going to want to download the Comprehensive Scorecard Framework, same as always from this website, and then complete the framework. And again, some people use pieces, print it off and use small mini sticky notes. Other times you may want to get a group together and do this on a whiteboard, and maybe you just map out the 7 areas and use the larger sticky notes and do this as a group. Either way, you're going to want to, after you get it done and typed up and made to where you can take it around and communicate it, you're going to want to take it to your colleagues and your bosses and maybe your subordinates and get their feedback and input, and then come back and refine, incorporate that in and refine your version. Once you've done that, you're ready to develop a systems perspective of that scorecard. And so beginning with the financial measures such as net income and expenses, you're going to identify where the net income comes from, the sources of revenue, and how your organization gets revenue. Next, you're going to want to identify the key product and service quality metrics that predict those. So you're taking what you did in the previous worksheet and reorganizing it and drawing arrows between the metrics to see which ones are connected and predict the other ones. So for a product and service offering, maybe you're going to connect your research and development and new product development projects and processes. For production quality, for product quality, maybe you want to look at production, both your operations and your suppliers' performance. From a service quality perspective, not only are there processes there, but there's also the one-on-one personal service from the customer-facing employees, and look at the process improvement projects. Often these are the strategy processes from that category 6, leadership and strategy. Your major initiatives and how do they affect the different aspects of product and service quality. And then how much are you investing in these, and where do the resources come from, and what are your efficiency operating measures and expenses? So you're taking, this aren't new metrics, at least not now. To do this for yourself, you're going to take the metrics you just identified in the framework and maybe spread them out on a board and organize them where you've got the shortest arrows and the closest connections, and then develop the interconnections between the scorecard that you just developed. So to do this, as always, download the scorecard, the blank sheet, and either use the mini Post-it notes or do this on a big whiteboard as a group. And oftentimes, if you can do it as a group and measure and talk about the measures and how one thing affects another. Again, it's really rare for any single individual in an organization to fully comprehend all the interconnections in the business or the organization and understand how everything affects everything else. And so oftentimes this conversation on a whiteboard with a cross-functional group of people who understand the individual pieces, this will help them develop a conversation and a dialogue around how what they do influences other parts of the organization. And so, it's a good vehicle for a rich conversation and a deeper understanding with your group of how things work in your organization. And at the end of the day, that may be the biggest benefit from this exercise, is the group's deeper collective understanding. Regardless, when you're done with this diagram and you've got a really good draft, you want to take it out for a spin and present it to your colleagues, present it to your boss, your subordinates, get their feedback, and as always, come back and refine it. All of these worksheets and all of these exercises are iterative processes, as you've figured out by now. And so the key is to going out and getting the feedback and incorporating it. The key to good writing is always rewriting, and the same is true for developing these measures and these worksheets. Once you've got your scorecard in the framework and the systems diagram of that scorecard, the next step is to identify and run those measures through a process that's a selection process for new metrics, but we can use it here to look at what we've already got. And if you've got some gaps, you can come back and use the same process to identify additional metrics. So the first question for each one of your metrics, you're going to run them through this process. You're going to ask, is this a regulatory or a stakeholder requirement? And if it is, if the answer is to this, then it's included in the scorecard. There's really no other further discussion needed in order to include it in a scorecard. But if it's not a requirement, if regulators aren't requiring you measure this and report it, and stakeholders aren't requiring it, then the next question is it actionable? Because if it's not actionable, it's not worth the time, money, and effort to measure it, collect it, and report on it. Because it might be interesting, but if you can't take action on it and make it changes in your organization to influence it, it's really not useful. So if it is actionable, there's really 3 additional questions, and we need a yes to at least one of these questions. So if it's not actionable, dump it, goes to the trash. If it is actionable, we're going to ask some more questions. First, will it help us manage or improve a system? Second, if the answer is to yes, we add it to the scorecard. If the answer is to no, then we ask another question. Will it help us develop or deploy the strategy? If it's yes, we add it to the scorecard. If it's no, we ask the final question. Will it help us understand or validate the value created for a stakeholder? And so you need a yes to at least one of these 3 questions. Will it help us improve a system? Will it help us develop or deploy strategy? Or will it help us understand and validate the value created for stakeholders in order for it to get to the scorecard? If the answer is no to all 3 questions, it ends up back in the trash. So the task with this worksheet is to take your performance measures and identify and list them on the worksheet. And then go across and ask, is it a regulation requiring it? No. Is it actionable? Check yes. Good. And then go through this sequence of system, strategy, and stakeholder. And then do that for the next one. Repeat sales. Is it actionable? We can. Yes. It's a stakeholder metric. Package damage. And we're going to do the same process all along the way. And in package damage, it's actionable. And if we knew the frequency and extent of damage and those types of things, we could use that in our analysis of improving a system and use it to validate the changes we're making, whether we did improve something or just did we change it. Same with on-time delivery, packages lost, workforce turnover. It might be a strategic measure. And sometimes the answer may be yes to multiple: system, strategy, and stakeholder, and that's okay. But we need at least one yes from system, strategy, or stakeholder in order to keep it. And in this case, total revenue, the question becomes, what can we do about that? And that would probably be a strategic measure. And ethics violation would be a strategy measure. So to complete your own measurement worksheet and run each measure through that flow chart, download the blank worksheet as usual from the website here, and then assess each performance measure on the 5 criteria, and then run that again by colleagues, boss, subordinates, get their feedback, incorporate that back and refine it. If you identify gaps in your scorecard in the next lesson and you decide that you're going to identify some new metrics in the Recreate lesson, which is the last lesson in this module, then you can come back and use this same process that we just walked through, the selection and assessment worksheet, to test new metrics that are being proposed as potential metrics. So the last worksheet in this lesson is the measurement data assessment. And in this is really just an inventory, if you will, of our data, and do we have the 3 dimensions of data that we need to fully analyze, understand, and use this data. So in the key concepts we talked about, you need the current level, you need the trend over time, and you need some comparison in order to do that. So to complete this worksheet, you're going to do, just like the previous worksheet, the first step is to identify the performance measures and list those in the left-hand column. And then the second step is to just answer the question with like a check mark, a yes or a no. Do we have the current data for this measure? In other words, are we currently measuring it, and do we know how good it's performing today? And then the next question is, do we have trend data for this measure over time, and how long? So in this one, you can often use maybe a number of years, months, whatever it is, and maybe a 0 for zero trend. And finally, do we have comparisons for this measure? And the comments section really is to document explain any of the the measures. And it's here you may want to put where does the comparison come from and things like that. Oftentimes I'll see organizations choose comparisons that are the industry average, let's say. But sustainable excellence and being really a great sustainable organization, creating value for multiple stakeholders, is about being the best or being in the top tier, not about being better than average. And so try to avoid industry average metrics because hopefully you can improve enough to be better than average. But the real goal is to be at the top and to be one of the highest performers in your industry. And consequently, you want to compare yourself to the best so that you can learn from the best and incorporate it creatively, adapt it to your organization. So examples, a way to do this, customer satisfaction. Yes, we have a level. Yes, we have trends. Yes, we have comparisons. Good news. And you could just go along and repeat sales. Maybe we don't have comparisons for that, which may not be unusual depending on your industry and how many publicly traded companies. Package is damaged. Maybe you don't. Maybe you track that and fix it so that you can fix the problem, but you're really not trending it over time, and you're really not using that for process improvement to prevent packages from being damaged. So that would be an opportunity to start keeping the data that you're measuring over time, capturing it, trending it. Maybe you don't have data for some of the on-time delivery. Maybe packages lost. You've got the immediate data, but no trends or comparison. Workforce, maybe we've got trends, and levels, but no comparisons. And sometimes we get the comparisons by getting a third party to help us. Because as you might imagine, and you probably already thinking that some of these metrics you can't get from, certainly may not be able to get them from competitors unless they're reported for some regulatory agency. And it's often difficult to get them at all. And so in many cases, there are third parties that provide services to measure an industry group and then provide you the information of how you're doing and how well you compare to the other players in your industry. And what they do is they mask or code the organizations. So you don't know who the different organizations are. You just have a code letter like organization A, B, C, D. But you do get to see more detailed data that way. Workforce satisfaction, maybe you've got levels and trends, again, no comparison. Sales, maybe you have everything, and the reason you've got revenue numbers is maybe you're part of a large publicly traded group, and all of that gets reported. And ethics violations, maybe you're not measuring. So to complete your own, again, you download the worksheet and just go answer the questions. And oftentimes you're going to have to go do research because unless you're in charge of collecting all those measures, you may or may not know what you have in your organization's database and how many things you're measuring. And so you may have to go talk to the people in charge of every one of those areas in order to complete this task. But you certainly can do it for the area you control. And once you've done it, then present it to your friends, family, I'm just kidding, colleagues, boss, and subordinates, and get their feedback, and then incorporate that back into the version. That ends the session. The next lesson is we're going to go assess how well your scorecard is working and prepare to improve it. We'll see you there.